back. The DA says South Africa's Russia nuclear deal has potential for corruption on a grand scale. The party renewed calls for details of the arrangement to be made public. Government announced last week as much as 9.6 gigawatt of power would be supplied to South Africa. Well, joining us now to discuss this deal a little bit further is Mohammed Noor Nordin, Managing Director of Nordin Consulting. Mohammed, good morning and thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you so much.
The nuclear power deal that has been announced, it's still waiting for details about it, but it has caused a lot of discussion. And opposition parties take a particular view. Other commentators say nuclear energy is not good for us. Nuclear power on its own is a problem. So all kinds of things. But if we look at it, South Africa is part of BRICS, the Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, of course, that trading bloc. And this deal cements those kind of relationships. Is it a good deal for South Africa to do with Russia at this stage?
I think, I think it's Kissinger who said, countries don't have friends, we have interests. And we have preferred partners, preferred friends, and we do deals with them. We should not be shy about it. There's nothing wrong about it. The US likes NAFTA, it likes G8 and so forth, and it goes on. And so South Africa, we're in BRICS, we have good relations with Russia, and in that context, so this is not saying whether it's good or bad for South Africa, that's another discussion. It is only logical that South Africa would take certain parts and very strategic projects such as nuclear to one of our BRICS partners. It doesn't mean we don't do business with Americans and the West. General Electric, they're doing huge deals with Transnet. We have Coca-Cola, we have McDonald's in South Africa. It's not that we're anti-American, anti-Western, and the relation should not be looked at in that context. But yes, we do have our preferred partners, and nuclear is a very sensitive issue, and it's only logical that it would go to someone who we are close to.
Do you think a similar kind of noise would have happened if the deal was with India, for instance?
I think the issue in South Africa is not necessarily the issue with who the partner is. There's a lot of issue. I think it comes within the broader discussion around the president and the ANC and issues of this nature. So I think that is also why there's a lot of pressure and a lot of noise around the deal.
Well, the relations between Russia and South Africa, are historic in the sense that, in the old days of the Soviet Union, Moscow supported the struggle against apartheid in South Africa, supported the ANC, supported the Communist Party. Those roots are deep. Do you think they play a role in making such decisions from your knowledge when you deal with the foreign governments?
I definitely, that definitely has a relation. You should also remember, it is by no accident that South Africa sits in BRICS. When South Africa came to BRICS, you had socialist, leftist parties running all of these governments. And South Africa, the ANC, to put it mildly, is a leftist movement. I mean, the big debate we're having at the moment between NUMSA and ANC is who is more left. So, of course, we are ideologically aligned to that part of the world. And also at the moment, there seems to be a tiff between that part of the world and the West. It's playing out in Crimea, playing out in the Mid East. So there would be a scrambling to align, to bring more allies into one's camp. And Africa is a place where this will eventually, or it is starting to play out.
So if this deal had been done with the West, for instance, we would not have had so much noise about it, watch out for Russia and stuff like that, do you think?
I think, I personally believe there definitely is a great amount of bias within the media when it comes to articulating South Africa's foreign policy objectives, definitely. And of course, South Africa is very cozy in BRICS. And so from opposition parties, we wouldn't like South Africa or government, to be too close to its partners, although the government is a prerogative. But I think the issue with the South African nuclear deal, it's 99% internal issues and internal pressures that is pushing on, and that will eventually push the opposition and eventually, deliver some, if you can say, results to stop it or to impede it, if that has to happen.
But we've also seen South Africa getting some benefit from trade benefits and aid benefits and financial benefits from its relationships with the US, for instance, in the world today. Is that what really puts it at a difficult position?
No, I think that's how it goes, and the US gets benefits from South Africa. The US has McDonald's, General Electric, our process being done, General Electric, huge contracts, IBM, and so forth. So South Africa is not averse to doing business with anyone. And likewise, I do not think that the US, its companies, would be averse to doing business with South Africa because we did a Russian deal. We have interest. We don't necessarily have friends. And as long as there's enough money flowing around for everyone, we'll maintain those relations.
Should the government be telling us more as a South African public about its interests?
I definitely think the government should be doing that. But also the question is, how much interest is there within South African public and within South African media on South Africa's foreign policy? And ask yourself how much of South African foreign policy or foreign engagements are spoken about in the media, other than the few negative issues that happen now and then. You only hear about the few soldiers who passed away and say are unfortunately, but we don't hear about many of the other things that happened. You know, there was the US-African summit. We only had a few headlines here and there. So I think there's not a lot of interest in South African public space for what happened, what South Africa does internationally.
Okay, very briefly, Mohammed, calls for more transparency on this particular nuclear power deal with Russia have been heard. Do you think they're justified?
I think definitely they're justified, but I think we also should not be alarmist. I think what has been signed is just a framework. There's no deal, there's no tender. And personally, as a professional, as a consultant in my profession, I do not think administratively this government has the capacity to conclude this deal in the time it has within the next 4.5, 5 years. I don't think this government will have the administrative capacity to conclude this deal.
Okay, we'll watch that space. That's Mohammed Noor Nordin, Managing Director of Nordin Consulting.